Before we begin, 3 messages. So, you've taken some of the advice that has come from Untether.tv guests, built an app, and now you're turning your attention to generating some hard-earned revenue. Then you should be looking at Pontiflex app leads. Some of your peers who are using app leads are earning CPMs 100 times the industry average. And if you need any other reasons to start, I'll give you 2 more. You can run sign-up ads from top brands, the ones that you recognize, and it won't take your precious users out of your app. Go to appleads.com, that's appleads.com, to sign up. When my company needed to develop a key mobile product, one that I was counting on as a new source of revenue, I knew exactly who to turn to. Macadamian. They delivered on time with incredible attention to detail, and I was able to get product into customers' hands faster than I ever thought possible. I've personally known them for 10 years, and they do make great products even better. Check them out at www.macadamian.com. Here's a riddle. How do you build native cross-platform mobile applications quickly without having to rewrite code and hire consultants at a huge cost? Titanium from Appcelerator. Called the easy button for mobile application development, it allows you to focus more on what's important, getting product out the door. Join the more than 1.5 million active developers who have created over 13,000 apps at www.appcelerator.com. Hello everybody, welcome to Untether.tv. My name is Rob Woodbridge, your host, your guide, shall we say, as we take these rides down through this little dark hole called mobile development and try to understand some of these, the intricacies of building a mobile company. And what I love to do is I love to bring in first-time entrepreneurs or young entrepreneurs who are kind of at the leading edge of what they're doing and what this space is doing. And of course, I've got one, because that's the introduction. I've got one from Lincoln, Nebraska. Of all places, Lincoln, Nebraska, the hotbed of mobile activity in the United States. Lincoln, Nebraska. Is that right, John?
That is true. Yes.
So we've been trying to connect for a couple of maybe a week or so because I'm really interested in their application TuneMe and how they've actually generated some revenue. They're using a combination of Pontiflex app leads as well as AdMob to generate revenue. John's company, first of all, it's John Hotovy.
Yes.
On the other end of the line, and his company is Atonality Mobile, and it's an auto-tune application for Android, and we're going to talk about that for a second. But we were going back and forth as we were trying to set up this interview, and I was explaining that the only thing that I know of Lincoln, Nebraska is a Bruce Springsteen song, aptly named Nebraska, about a guy by the name of John Starkweather who goes on a murderous rampage in Lincoln, Nebraska. That's the only impression that I've ever heard of Lincoln, Nebraska. So I'm really happy to meet you. And John, thank you for enduring that long introduction and for actually being a part of this. Really appreciate your time and insight into this great industry called mobile. Thanks, man. Really appreciate you being here.
No problem.
So why don't we start with the way that I absolutely butchered your name. After practicing, it's Hotovy, John Hotovy, and
Correct.
Atonality Mobile. What is this company that you're building? First, start with a name. It's a great story.
All right, so Atonality Mobile formed as a result of us looking up cool words online in the dictionary, and we basically found this word, and the definition was atonality is the absence of a tonal center, the absence of pitch in a musical piece, and as we'll talk about later, this is total opposite of what our application does. So we chose that name just because it was funny to us. And
you see back there, I don't know if you see, I have a guitar over there that sits over there, and that atonality describes my pitch 100% perfectly. It's like the key of Dylan, 100%. In fact, so much so that my kids, when I play the guitar, they put their hands over their ears and shake their head, say, "No, Dad, no." So I'm absolutely I'm interested in what it is that you're going to do. So talk about you guys build Android applications, right?
Correct. So our company was kind of formed mishappily. We just basically one summer when I had some free time, I had gotten my Android phone about 6 months earlier, and my philosophy has always been, well, what do I not have on my phone that I wish I had? And so that's kind of where the inspiration for all of my application ideas have come from. And out of that, I looked at iPhone and saw the IMT Paint application, which was an auto tune application for the iPhone, and there was no suitable alternative for Android. And
Mhm.
so what I did was I built it for myself, and out of that simple idea came the whole opportunity to form a company focused on Android development. And so a lot of great ideas have come out of it, and I'm excited for more to come.
So, I mean, I saw that IMT Paint is done by Sonic Mule, Smule, which is Guy Wang, which is a
Yes.
great company out of the Bay Area. Um, Now, was it a, without getting into too many technical details, I mean, did you have an expertise in this area, or did you just say, listen, I want to learn how to do this? You're a developer, a Java developer by trade, but doing basically auto tune, was this a challenge for you, or is it just a piece of cake? How long did it take?
Yeah, I would say it was definitely a challenge. The hardest part was learning the implementation specifically in Android. The whole part with the auto tuning is actually done through an open source library called Auto Talent,
Hmm.
which is a clone of the popular plugin. And so that part was relatively simple. And what we did was basically bring that to thousands of users easily through mobile development. And yeah, it was difficult at first. I'd had little to no experience working on real projects before this summer when I started at first, and the first couple of releases were quite a challenge and were in all aspects a failure. But it
Well,
was definitely a learning experience. So
so what made
yeah, it's,
what made them a failure? Was it just that it didn't work, or
you know, a couple things. The first was that I didn't have an opportunity to test on many different phones,
right?
and so it didn't work on many different phones except for my own Motorola Droid. But the bigger problem was actually that I didn't bring quite the same user experience that I found in the final pass of the application. I learned a lot after the first time that you can improve a product's usefulness to someone so much more by making it simpler and easy to use and good looking, and that's what I focused on the second release, and it made such a huge impact on the way people perceived it, and it gave it its own like brand name and branding that just helps to make people feel like so much more personalized as they use the application. So
So I mean that's really interesting so you know the first version was very much an engineer looking at a problem, like it seemed easy for you to use. There was you know, from a UI perspective. And
yep.
then, I mean, you put it out there, and you put it up on the Android store on the marketplace.
Yeah, and then I took it down a few days later because it didn't do so hot. But
Well, you know, this is one of the issues, I guess, when you're developing for Android is the fragmentation, right? The multiple devices,
it's
multiple operating
correct.
systems, right? Some are on still like 1.7, you know, Android 1.7.
1.6, yeah,
Pardon?
1.6 mostly.
See, that's
Yep.
incredible. That, and I mean, we're talking about Android 3 or whatever, Honeycomb, or you know,
Right.
Donut,
Yep.
or um, so. But when you start to talk about that, I mean, how did you address that issue with the fragmentation?
It's something that we still are working on, and I think it's one of the things that makes it extremely difficult for Android developers to get a working product as compared to iPhone developers.
Hmm.
I mean, even such things as like worrying about screen size and how your application is going to look differently on all of these different phones, and will everything fit on the screen
Right.
on a smaller phone, or will it fit on my massive Droid X probably? But so yeah, it's something that we're still working on, and the way you do it is you listen to your users' comments through the market and through emails to you, and you focus on the phones that aren't working, and you try to find workarounds specifically for them. So
How much?
it's something that we still have perceive as a challenge.
I mean, how much time did it take for you to develop for your Droid?
Um, and counting the two different development stages, the first one took about a month. And that was before the first release, which was pulled a few days later, and then the second one took about a week.
Okay.
But that was quite in hours. It'd probably be a lot more than an 8-hour day. It was pretty much full time thing for a week or maybe a week and a half. So yeah.
So maybe 5 or 6 weeks to develop from kind of a scratch in terms of developer time, right?
Yes, correct.
Um, And how much do you think? So that last week and a half or 2 weeks was really spent on making it work on other devices or other operating versions of the OS.
Yeah, that was one thing, and then the other thing, like I said earlier, just giving it that branded
The UI.
feel,
Yeah.
this simplistic user interface.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the things that you modified from the first version that went up for a couple of days from a UI perspective? What are some of the things that you did that made it better?
You know, the funny thing is, when I first released it, it had an entire page full of different controls you could use to set different aspects of how your voice would be corrected and like how the plugin and the effect would be mixed in with your voice. And in the final release, everything was taken out. So what we did was find the best options and make it simple for the user who just wants to open up the application, record a song, and not have to learn how all of those things work, just to have fun with their pretty much what they perceive as a game.
Yeah.
And so that was the biggest thing we changed in the UI. There were a couple. Any other thing was just new images for the background, new fonts, just to make it look more fun.
Yeah, so like you added a personality to it, but that's a big thing though. Stripping out features or functions that you think are going to be relevant, like people want to actually physically tune their voice, so they want to adjust it, but it just seemed too complicated. So you take that out and you just do the standard. You know, this is just TuneMe. This is auto tune for Android.
Right. Correct. And I think it works well. I mean, most people don't. What the whole idea with mobile applications is, you get in and you get out. I mean, you're not going to be. It's not like you're sitting on your computer all day playing with this. You have a few moments of free time. You want to go record a song and you do it, and you don't want to have to mess with anything.
Right.
So simplicity is key.
So one button kind of pushing. You hit a button and it records. You hit a button and it stops. You like it or you don't like it, kind of thing. Is that about right?
Exactly. Yep.
So what other lessons do you think what other lessons have you learned? So from that very first 2-day stint on the store to an app, how many times has it been downloaded now?
We have around 208,000 downloads.
208,000 downloads.
Yes.
So, I mean, how many people downloaded it during that first couple of days where it only worked on the Droid X?
It did pretty well in terms of downloads. I think over the 2-day period, it had around 2,000.
Okay.
So, and I think the reason for that is just because people wanted. I mean, there was no good alternative on the market, so it was just waiting for someone to take the opportunity, basically. Yep.
So obviously, Droid users or Android users are forgiving.
Right.
So you pulled it down because it was only working on one device. But so you got 208,000 downloads of this application. And when did you launch it officially? Like, when did it actually go live when it worked?
I believe December 31st,
Okay.
So right before the new year.
Okay.
Yep.
So right after Christmas, everybody's got their new devices. It's probably it's a good thing.
Perfect time. Yep.
So 208,000, and the feedback since then has been good?
Yeah, it's been very positive. I think for the majority, they maintained a 4 out of 5 star rating, which is fairly good for the Android market, where people are pretty openly critical and not afraid to give you a 1-star rating if it doesn't work on their phone. Yeah. So 4 out of 5 star rating we perceive as our for what we're doing, and we've reached that.
So 4 out of 5 stars. You're breaking up a little bit, so I'll just repeat it. So I mean, predominantly 4 out of 5 stars. Great ratings that are happening for this. So that's one of the big determinants when it comes to what kind of applications or what applications people download. But for this, you decided to not charge. Like, there was actually a report that came out recently that said, somewhere in the range of 88 to 92% of all Android apps are free. Right? It's been it's very difficult to turn it into revenue, like for people to actually purchase apps. But so why did you decide to give it away, or why did you decide this would be a free or an ad-supported app?
I got a couple comments on that, actually, and my perception is kind of changing and shifting towards a paid model now, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but I'll tell you the reason at first, I guess. There's actually an application that had been released a few weeks earlier, actually this summer, a few weeks before the first release, called MicDroid, and basically our competitor in the Android space, and theirs was also free, and so there's not much you can do in that realm if you're not. I mean, you've got to find yourself a way to set yourself apart, but even then, users of Android are probably going to go for a free alternative first instead of trying the paid version. And so we had to keep up with our competition. And until we had a way to set ourselves apart, which we believe we do now, and that's what I'll talk about a little more later, you have to keep up with your competition and keep up with kind of the other applications in the Android realm, which, like you said, a majority of those are free. And so what we've done now is we actually developed a new feature for ours, which will allow you to record over background songs. And so what we did was we released basically a beta version of that to our donation users. So that's a $2.99 purchase to purchase that version, and we announced it to the free version that it was available there, and we've seen very positive results with people switching over to try that new feature out. And so when you've got something that can set yourself apart from the competition, I think users of Android are very willing to pay for a good product. And this is obviously very new for me since this just happened 2 days ago, and I'm still learning, but it's been very good so far.
So, I mean, do you plan on leaving a version up there that's ad-supported, and then this new version that allows you to record over tracks as the paid version ultimately, or are you just going to go to one version of the product?
I think there will always be a free version, and we haven't decided yet specifically what features will be included in that or not, but I think there's always going to be room for a free version, an ad-supported model in Android, and it's been successful so far, and I believe it will continue to be successful.
Okay, we're going to come back to the switch over to a paid version, especially in light of what we're seeing out there in the marketplace, which is very difficult to monetize Android applications simply because the huge number of free apps. I mean, we thought that iOS had a huge number of free apps, but not comparatively, not as a percentage. Certainly,
Right.
Free iOS apps dwarf free Android apps just in numbers, but not as a percentage. But so you launched at the end of December of 2010, and what ended up happening there is that you created, you went with an ad-supported model. Was that right away, or did you actually just get it out there, get some downloads, and then do some updates with an ad-supported?
It was, for all intents and purposes, right at the release date. I think it might have been 1 or 2 days after, but very close to when it was released, before we had a large amount of downloads.
We went with the ads, and
yes.
You went with Pontiflex, their App Leads program. I've interviewed Pontiflex; they're a sponsor of the show. But you went with them. Why?
Well, actually, to comment on that a little bit, we started out with AdMob,
Okay.
and that continued by itself for about 1.5 to 2 months before we switched out to Pontiflex.
Okay.
And so the way that happened was I had never heard of the company before, and actually I wasn't too familiar with sign-up-based ads at all.
Yep.
And so they contacted me through email, and we gave them a phone call, and they explained their model to us, and we decided that we should give it a try. So it was kind of just a lucky shot that we heard from them, and so it worked out really well.
So they actually they reached out to you because of obviously the popularity of your application?
Right. I believe so.
Okay, now, so when you so talk about your experience with AdMob. I mean, what was that? What were you seeing with AdMob? Was it generating revenue for you?
It was generating a small amount of revenue. And there's a couple of things we could have done better. One of the things we looked into was using a service such as AdWorld or something that would integrate more networks of more banner-based ad networks.
Yeah.
We never went that route because we switched over to Pontiflex so early. Let's see. The experience in general was that revenue seemed to slide up and down day to day on a day-to-day basis, and it was never very consistent. and that was one of the biggest problems. Some days fill rates would be 75%, the next day it'd be 100%, but the CPM would drop. So it was just, overall the revenue turned out very shaky and unpredictable.
So it was kind of like the more downloads that you had, the less revenue you were driving. Is that?
Yeah, correct. So our huge increase in downloads never translated to an increase in revenue with AdMob.
So, so you decide to give sign-up-based ads a go at with Pontiflex. What was your? And you can be honest here. What was your original thought? I mean, when they came, is that are you willing to try anything now to generate revenue? Is that the kind of sure, we'll give it a try? We don't. Well, you have a benchmark.
In some sense, we were really unhappy with AdMob. I mean, an application that was that successful in that short of time, we felt like should have been generating a lot more revenue than we were with AdMob. And so we were really unfamiliar with the idea at first, honestly, and it took some convincing. I think the fact that we saw other developers using them and being successful with them kind of helped us to decide.
Yep.
So there's no risk is the thing. For someone like me at least, there's no risk in trying something new, and the only thing you could hurt is your rating in the market, and that's definitely a real thing to think about. But you can always you just want to be consistent, like I said earlier, and listen to feedback. And if you get a negative response, then you don't do it. But we had an excellent response from them, and so there's no reason not to try it.
So, I mean, talk about that. So you implement it. It's not a difficult thing to implement into the product. I love the fact that you actually got people used to the fact that there was already advertising in it from an early stage. So it's not like they didn't expect it. It wasn't, you didn't do an update and then there were some ads in it. You did an update and there was a different type of ad. So what was the results like? I mean, what did you see from after you implemented App Leads?
Well, we saw right away about 4 to 5 times the revenue initially that we were making with AdMob, which was incredible. And we saw we saw no decrease in rating in the market. And in fact, as Pontiflex has sent out updates to their product, we've seen our rating increase as they've improved the user experience of how their ads show up. And so that's been awesome too, because having someone else hand you a new SDK for their advertisements in your application and having that improve your rating is just really nice. Really good feeling.
So, I mean, the process is basically it's an inobtrusive ad that is related to the content of the application. You click on it. It doesn't take you out of the app. It allows you to sign up for more information within the app, and then you get compensated based on that sign up. Is that right? That's
correct. Yep. In some sense, there's less interruption than a banner ad is. If you click on an AdMob advertisement, it loads up the standard Android browser and loads the web page, which takes 4 to 5 times longer than an in-app screen. So it's very convenient for the user.
So, I mean, when we're talking about 4 to 5 or 6 times the revenue in the beginning, and then what are we talking about here when it came to signups? Like, you were getting compensated for people to sign up. I mean, really, like the idea for some people that look, I'm going to click on this. I'm not going to ever sign up for an advertisement through a mobile app, right? But people are doing this. Is that I've never done it. Had you done it before?
No, actually. Like I said, I wasn't too familiar with the whole idea. And the thing that's awesome about it is, you see those kind of things in a browser on your computer, and obviously that screams no. But the awesome fact is that it doesn't do that in a mobile sense. On a phone, you're willing to give away to send out your information, especially when you trust a developer and you trust in the product that you're interested in, that you're freely signing up for. You're not being forced to anything.
Yeah.
And you're giving away just pretty standard information. I mean, you're giving away your name and your email address, and that's a way that your developer can get in contact with you and build their relationship with you in a way that you can't get any other way through the Android market, in that the Android market's comment system leaves a first name and a sentence and no way to contact that person.
Right.
But this really builds the connection. You can build an email list with your signups and really build a connection through Facebook and Twitter and just individualized emails to your customers, and it's just awesome. It's something that you can't get anywhere else.
So as part of signing up for the ad, you get that mailing list as well?
Right, correct.
See, that's a really interesting play. I mean, obviously, even on iOS, you don't own the customer. Apple owns the customer because you don't have access to them. You've got to come up with ways of actually getting their email address
right.
outside of the app. So when you're talking about, what were you generating with AdMob in the early days? Was it like $6 a day kind of thing?
Probably around 3 times that, around $18 to $20 per day.
Okay. And then when you moved over to Pontiflex, what was the revenue you're generating?
I believe at first it was approximately $100 per day.
$100 a day.
Correct.
And that was consistent at that level.
Yes.
And then, so what's been your best day?
I want to throw out like 125, I'm guessing.
Okay. So $125 a day, but are you still at that kind of consistent level, like $100 a day kind of thing?
I'm gonna go ahead and say that not quite to that level of revenue, but that's more attributed to a lowering in the amount of uses of our application. Pontiflex itself has been very consistent as far as CPM goes, and so, and a lot of the initial rush is because you're sending out the update to all of your users for the first time, and some of them obviously are going to sign up once and not again, which is perfectly fine.
Right.
So we've had obviously some loss, but none that would be attributed especially to Pontiflex being shaky in any way in terms of CPM from day to day.
I mean, so of the 208,000 people that have downloaded the application, you're right, they'll sign up once or they'll sign up twice, but I mean, what's the conversion rate? Or what's the difference in conversion rate?
Can you go over how I define that again?
So, out of the 208,000 people that have downloaded the application, I'm just intrigued by how many, how big is the mailing list that has resulted in? What's the conversion rate?
I haven't checked the numbers recently, but I believe, let's see, on around April 20th, we had over 10,000 signups. So quite a large percentage of our 200,000 users have actually entered their information and joined our list.
See, that's incredible. So this, when it comes to advertising, that's one thing. You're generating, even if you're generating $50 or $60 or $70 a day, I mean, what we're talking about here in the average month is, anywhere between $2,500 and $3,000 in revenue for this one app, right?
Right.
And then not only that, you've got a mailing list that allows you to drive, when you launch your next version, the one that you're paying, the for pay one, or your next app, you have a mailing list to launch from.
Exactly. Yep. And that's exactly what we're doing. So with our new feature, we're going to send out an announcement to the free application, and then we're going to send another announcement through our list to reach the users who have already indicated that they're very interested in our product. So it's an awesome opportunity. There's no way you can get that through the Android market itself.
So you're almost, it's like you're getting paid to have to develop a mailing list.
Exactly. Yep. It's awesome.
All right. So shift it here now. So do you think that with the $2.99 charge, like for the new version of the application or the new app, we'll call it, do you think that you can match that kind of revenue? So, whatever, 30 sales a day kind of thing. Is that the hope? You think that it can scale that quickly?
You mean as far as, do I think donation revenue can match advertising revenue?
Yeah.
I can't make that call yet.
Okay.
I can tell
2
you
days
that,
in, come on. You're not proclaiming a victory?
Well, I would go ahead and say I'd proclaim victory in the last 2 days, but obviously 2 days is enough time to tell. So I will say that our donation revenue in the past few days has surpassed advertising revenue both times, but that's not necessarily a clear indicator of what will happen in the next week or month.
Yeah. Well, I think a good mobile strategy when it comes to generating revenue is exactly what you're doing. A combination of these two things is that, I mean, if you can still drive a freemium model with obviously with the ad supported for TuneMe on a simpler version all of a sudden you've got that, and that can be driving. That's a consistent revenue as long as you nurture that and create it. You want to be driving the mailing list. Introducing a for pay with additional features, natural, right? So that you've complemented it. And then obviously the third stage of this is introducing new product, whether it's freemium or for pay based on the list that you've got. This has been a good experience, obviously. For your first app, it's pretty impressive that you're actually generating revenue and 280,000 downloads. So what happens to you next? What's next for you guys?
Actually, you mentioned new products, and that's definitely on our list. But we have a couple things that we're doing with TuneMe that are really exciting. Now that we've got our background beats feature up and running, we're going to talk to a bunch of record companies to bring basically popular artists of the radio to TuneMe to let people sing their favorite songs. And so we're going to be really focused on that over the next few months. And that's going to be another huge source for revenue, honestly. Digital downloads are something that Google just released a new feature for to make it really easy for developers. They don't have to handle any of the financial information. That's all done securely through Google Checkout, I believe. Yeah. And so that's really a great way for new developers to hit a huge revenue stream, especially if you're designing a game. And it's just impressive how many people will pay for a potion that they can drink to heal themselves in the game. And so I think that's a great opportunity to make revenue on Android.
Do you think that you'll be able to convince the record labels or I mean to be able to license you that music?
It's going to be a challenge, and we're really excited to do it, honestly. This is the fun part of the whole thing. We haven't necessarily made any calls yet, but we've got a bunch of people. We're preparing our stuff to show them, and we've got the names and the numbers, so we've yet to see how that goes, but we're really excited. And I think
the first song you should do is like Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen, right?
Yeah, I don't know if Bruce Springsteen's voice needs to be auto-tuned though.
Oh man. Well, it does, because I can't sing like him. So
there you go.
If you can, I swear, John, I would pay dollars, lots of dollars, at least $5 if you could make me sound like Bruce Springsteen.
All right. To work on a new plugin.
Come on, drop everything that you're doing. Let me sound like Springsteen for a day. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, there you go.
I think the big challenge, obviously, is getting everybody to agree that, listen, licensing is this, because this is the challenge that I know that the cloud services are having. Google just announced their music sharing system. I think we're going to hear about iCloud, which might be Apple's music sharing system, coming up at WWDC. Certainly Amazon is into this space as well with their announcement a couple of weeks ago. That's a big challenge to be able to convince somebody to give up the rights or to license it. But I mean, if it makes them money and they're satisfied with it, whatever. Let people learn how to sing like Gaga. That's fine.
Yep, that's what we're hoping for. So it's going to be a really fun challenge.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, why else would you do this? It's if it was easy, everybody would do it. What about other things like so that's what else do you have in mind for TuneMe? Is there anything else that's going to come down the road?
We've had a couple other features that people have requested that we're not working on quite as much yet, but we hope to continue those, I guess, and once we have the time for it. One of those being basically a live pitch correction where you would sing directly into your phone and it would just come out of your speakers right then. And that's the problem with that is it's mostly due to a limitation with the hardware on these phones and the Android SDKs that are available. And so it's very difficult. And it's something we've had to deal with as far as user feedback goes, as it's something that right now is just not very feasible on most of the devices that people have. But as the technology grows, we're going to definitely be looking into bringing that feature as well.
And so what about... So you've obviously got to build TuneMe. You got to satisfy the users because that's what's going to drive some revenue. What about new product? That's obviously on the horizon.
Yeah, we have a couple other things we've done already. One of them is actually called "What's for Lunch," and another thing that came out of my whole idea of what do I want on my phone that I don't have. And so what this program does is searches the University of Nebraska Lincoln's dining halls for your favorite food. So you can find out where the chicken strips are, and you can walk to that dining hall. And so we actually licensed that with the university.
Come on.
We did around campus. So that's one of the things we did over the course of the past year that was really fun. And then the other thing that we're getting into is mobile websites, actually. We did one for a conference in Omaha, Nebraska, called Infotech, and we designed their mobile website, and we've had a couple other requests for just some kind of consulting work on some other websites. So we've got places to go, and we're really excited for those new opportunities as well.
Well, that's the great part about this is that you can do this in your spare time. I mean, you're gainfully full-time employee for another company. Do you see a point in time where do you hope to be able to do this full-time?
Yeah, actually, obviously, like you said, this summer I'm a full-time employee, and then in the fall I'll be a full-time student again for the next year. But I'm actually hoping for next summer to make it a full-time job for myself, and we'll see where it goes from there. I think once I have the time to dedicate to it, it can really take off, and so I'm really excited for that too.
Yeah, and you know what? Who knows? Wouldn't it be great to be able to earn a passive income while you're at school just by running, the effort that you make this summer, putting towards these applications.
Right. Yep.
I love that. I love that. So obviously this is Android only, which is a unique thing because most people migrate to iOS first. But certainly with your Java expertise for Android, you might be able to start looking over at the Blackberry because I know that the Blackberry has nothing like this. Right.
Right.
Do you look at porting over to other devices like this, or do you just stay on Android and get that right?
The only other devices that I see from my perspective as worth porting to would be iPhone, which already has the same kind of thing. I'm not sure what the market share is on BlackBerry, or if it even would be like a reasonable thing to do to spend the time to port it over. But I guess it's something to look into as kind of the game changes for mobile devices, and if BlackBerry makes a comeback, then there's a great opportunity to bring it to a new device. So it's always a thing we keep in mind, but as of right now, there's no plans.
What about do you look at Windows Phone 7? Because I'm sure that there isn't an auto-tune app for Windows Phone 7 yet.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's not. And once again, I haven't taken much time to check out what the market share is. That'd probably be my second best option, though, from just the things I've read and heard. Windows Phone should do all right. I honestly don't have too much confidence in BlackBerry, and I've never really considered that. But so we could look into that too. It's going to depend on who the next big player is compared to iPhone and Android.
Yeah, it's also your time. Where do you put your best efforts?
Right.
You have a small team, and you're doing this part time. From 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Right.
Yeah.
So, so people can download this TuneMe TuneMe from the Android Marketplace or from your website, or is it just available on the Android Marketplace?
Just on the Android Marketplace.
Okay. So obviously go to the Android Marketplace and download it, and they can find more information about you guys where?
That would be www.atonalitymobile.com. I might have to spell that one out. ATONALITY mobile.com.
Okay.
Or you can just search Google and try to get the spelling right, and you'll find us.
That's right. And right next to a tonality, the definition will be my voice.
Right.
If you get an audio sample, it's exactly my voice that comes over.
There you go. Yeah.
Atonality. And again, you know what? I'm going to put this up there. I'll actually pay $10, John, if you can actually make me sound like Bruce Springsteen.
It might be worth it now.
$10, $10 whole dollars, man.
All right.
I will definitely give you that. Well, John, I really appreciate this. Technical glitches, bandwidth constraints. There's we've had a fuzzy video, of course, always just until the end. But I really appreciate you doing this. Certainly successes when it comes to advertising, in-app advertising. It just shows that you don't need to be a million download app at the base to be able to generate the revenue, which is a big fallacy that people think is that in order to be able to freemium app, that generates revenue, you have to have 1 million downloads plus. And So, I mean, you scaled, and your revenue scaled with the number of people that actually downloaded the app. And it's at 208,000, generating $2,500 to $3,000 a month in revenue for one app. That to me is a win. Obviously, it's a very successful app. And to be able to leverage that into your own mailing list, it's a pretty great, it's a pretty good situation to be in. So kudos, good job on that.
Thanks.
And I'll look forward to seeing what else comes from you guys, and we'll have you on to see how have you back on to see how the split works between advertising and for paid applications on the Android marketplace.
Awesome. Yeah, we're really excited to see how that goes. Definitely something new for us, but so far it's going great. So we'll see how that goes. Very
cool. Well, I've been speaking with John Hotovy, who is the co-founder of Atonality Mobile. Go check them out at atonality.com, exactly how it sounds. I'll have a link somewhere up here like this. And thank you, John, for doing this and persevering. And thank you guys who are still watching or listening to this. Really appreciate it. Love some feedback about this. Anything that you want to do, any guests that you want on, or any comments you have for John or about the application that we featured here, which is TuneMe, let me know. untether@gmail.com. And I will look forward to bringing another guest to you the next time on the next episode of Untether.tv. Thanks, John.
Thanks.